So if the thesis of our work is that faith shapes a vocation, which shapes culture, for blessing or for curse, it's not a simple 1, 2, 3 that we can say, well, that happens pretty quickly and easily. Look over there, really. I think about this as a historical note. Some years ago, one of my sons was doing a year study in the south of India, and I visited him for a week or so, and we traveled around together and saw a lot of things. And I just kept noticing, I wasn't writing it down in a notebook, I just kept noticing that all the hospitals we saw had Christian symbols on the hospitals. They were St. George's Hospital, or they had a Red Cross on the hospital. Finally, I asked my son, doesn't Hindu culture produce hospitals? He said, well, he didn't think it did, actually. He was nuanced and thoughtful and kind and truthful about what Hinduism is and what it does. But he said, karma is so strong in Hindu culture that karma doesn't implicate us in somebody else's life. That's their karma. That's their stuff. They have to deal with their own karma. I have my own karma to deal with. That doesn't mean that all Hindus are the worst people or that no Hindus are kind or compassionate. That's not the argument. But as ideas, as a way of making sense of the world, Hindu ideas don't implicate a person in being responsible for other people, really. I've got my own things to deal with, as do you, really. And so when I think about this idea of, a faith forming a vocation which forms a culture, I don't think it's a simple thing or a quick thing or an easy thing. I deeply believe that apart from God's people being involved in all the tough, perplexing places of the world, they won't flourish. They don't flourish, really. That apart from us being the salt and light of the kingdom as we're called to be, the meat does rot. The rooms are dark. As John Stott once put it, he said, salt and light are effective commodities. They affect their environments. Why would you blame the room for being dark? Why wouldn't you ask, why wasn't the light turned on? Why would you blame the meat for rotting? Why wouldn't you ask, why wasn't it salted? So when I look out at the world and I think, in so many ways it does make me groan. So many ways it does make me, sigh. And I realize that, in heart-aching ways, too often the church has said, we won't get involved there, actually. That's too much of a mess. We surely couldn't be involved there, could we? How could we be responsible for that, actually? Whether you think about the worlds of Hollywood or, the worlds of New York, finance and story-making, filmmaking in Hollywood, or you're going to pick your place, really. Agribusiness in California, or, big business in St. Louis or Dallas or Houston. And you realize when you begin to get involved, even in the most ordinary ways with the way the world is, that it is not the way it's supposed to be. But the very calling we have is to be salt and to be light. And I would say for all the years I've lived in Washington, what's kept me there in some ways is this reading of the teaching of Jesus, that salt and light are to be effective commodities. In many ways, Washington is a very hard place to live, really. It's a city full of glories, some glories, but many, many shames. And apart from believing, in fact, that we're supposed to be there, we're called to be there as the salt and light of God in the world, I'm not sure I would want to stay being there, actually. I remember talking to a man who was the Archbishop of the Anglican province of Kenya a few years ago about this relation of faith to vocation to culture. And he said to me, over a little napkin at a restaurant, he said, Steve, when I see those words, he says, we've disconnected those in the church in Kenya and really all over Africa. We've taught a faith that does not shape a vocation, taught a Jesus that has nothing to say about vocation. Therefore, we have corrupt cultures, really. He said, would you please help us with this? We need something more than this, really, for the church in Africa. So it isn't just an American problem, it's really a global problem. And we need to find a way to have a coherent vision of faith that shapes our life And not only does the church need that, but the world needs that.